Hi there, thank you so much for joining me tonight. This is Julie DiMatteo from thepaperpixie.com, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And in tonight's Facebook Live video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this awesome lip balm shadow box. Super cute for stocking stuffers or just as a little pick-me-up for someone. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we are going to start with a piece of basic black cardstock that measures 6 1/8 by 8 1/8. And let me bring in the Simply Scored. What I'm going to do is score 4 times on all 4 sides. And those 4 score lines are at 1/2 inch, 1 1/8, 1 5/8, and 2 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and make those score lines. All right, so we've kind of done that grid pattern. I'll bring out the template in just a second, but I think you can see that pretty well how that looks. Lots of score lines here. Now, along the long side, we're going to make 2 more score lines at both the top and the bottom, but we're only going to score down to the second horizontal score line. And those marks are going to be at 2 3/4, so down 1, 2 score lines, and 5 3/8. So 1, 2, rotating it 180 and repeat the same on the other side. Then along the shorter sides, we're going to make 2 more score lines, but this time we're going to go down to the 4th score line, and that's going to be at 1 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, down to the 4th score line. You'll see this is just a little 1/8 of an inch difference, but that's okay. There's a reason for that. And then 4 3/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, rotating it 180 to repeat the same thing. 1 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 3/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's all the scoring we're going to do. Let me show you the template so you can start to imagine what this looks like. I know it's hard, maybe a little easier to see on basic black here, but we're going to be cutting away quite a bit. So what I've done, I know that this is messy and crazy looking, but the blue Sharpie lines are basically where we're going to cut. And all this extra stuff is going to go away. So what we're creating here, I'm just going to point out a couple of things. We've got these little tabs. That's just going to help us form a very sharp corner of the box. Just kind of finishes it off nicely. And then these diagonal pieces are what's going to give us this really pretty, almost picture frame-like look to this shadow box. So I'm going to go ahead and start making those cutting lines. I'm just going to bring out my paper snips and just start cutting away here. So up those 2 score lines. Then using my paper snips, I'm just going to cut from there to, so I'm cutting from here to there, just connecting basically that intersection there. And I've essentially not only created this diagonal piece here, but I've also created this funny looking tab here, okay? And again, that's going to help us have those sharp corners. We have made all the cutting pieces, and let me just overlay this here so you can picture it. We've basically cut away all of these sections on those outside corners. Now the last thing I'm going to do is just notch in on each of these pieces, each of the tabs, and each of these last little 1/2 inch sections. It's just going to kind of help our box go together nicely. So again, here we go. So then the last thing I'm going to do is fold and burnish on all those score lines. All right, so now we're going to add some tear and tape. So we're going to run tear and tape along all 4 of these outer 1/2 inch edges, as well as on these 4 tabs. Then the last thing I'm going to do is where these diagonal edges are, I'm also going to put tear and tape, little piece of tear and tape right along there. All right, so we've done all that tear and tape. Now what I'm gonna do is we're gonna start putting this together. I'm gonna start with the two sides that don't have the diagonal pieces. Those are the easiest to adhere to the box here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull off the tear and tape. And there's a little trick to this that makes it easy every time. So I'm gonna fold on the 1/2 inch piece here, and then I'm gonna fold on the 3rd score line. Okay, so count 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna fold on this one, folding this little 1/2 inch down and pressing into place. And that is gonna just completely square up to where I want it to square up. I love that. Makes this super easy to do. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Fold it on the 1st score line and the 3rd score line. Just press that into place. And there we go. Now I'm going to peel off all the rest of the backing of the tear and tape. It's just easier to do it now. The first thing we're going to do is adhere these tabs, and I'm basically lining up the score line on the tab here with the flat edge here, and that's going to create our sharp corner there. And I'm going to do that on all 4 corners. All right, there we go. Now, when we do these edges, here's what I find is the easiest. Just fold that out of the way so you can see. I'm going to fold on the 2nd score line, okay? And that should line up. You want this edge right here to go as far to the inside as it'll go. Basically, so it's right into that corner edge there. And then you just want to keep that in place and press it down. And then while I do that, oops, here we go. While I do that, I'm also going to square up these corners. Because if you remember, we've got that tear and tape on that diagonal section there. So there we go. Press those into place. Okay, we'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to then fold on the 2nd score line. Okay, so it's right in, flush up against the side. Press it, start to press it into place. Squaring up those corners. There's that little shadow box. I'm going to beg, borrow, and steal. I don't have another lip balm to demonstrate. And put that right inside. All right, how cool is that? I love it. The most special Burt's Bees lip balm ever. Okay, so now let's make a little belly band for this. This comes from the designer series paper called Christmas Around the World. Beautiful set of patterns for the Christmas holiday. We're going to use this beautiful plaid pattern. And this piece of designer series paper measures 5 inches by 3 3/4. Okay, so the 3 3/4 is just a hair longer than this box, and that just allows for the shadow box to completely be inside that belly band. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to manually wrap this around the box because then that way it's not going to be too tight. So I'm just kind of right on the corner of that box, going to kind of fold it into place. And I'm just pinching a little bit so I can kind of see where that fold line is, and then we will burnish that. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. And just pinching again. So we're just manually putting that into place. Okay, now let's go ahead and fold and burnish on those score lines we made. And while I do that, what I'm doing is I'm just making sure when I fold it down that it's as straight as possible. And I'm doing that by just looking at where these edges line up. All right, so then all I'm going to do is put a strip of tear and tape. Let's see. There's one that's more in the middle. Yeah, I think this one is. I'm going to do a strip of tear and tape right along this edge here. Then we will go ahead and wrap that around our box here. And I'm not pulling it too tightly when I wrap it around the box. And I'll just press that into place. It should be a little bit snug, but as you kind of slide it in and out, it'll be just the right width. Okay, so there's that belly band. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna tie a ribbon. This is the Old Olive mini chevron ribbon. I love this ribbon, but it is one of the coordinating colors. We'll do a teeny tiny bit of stamping here. Hearts Come Home. Love this stamp set. It comes in a bundle if you want to save 10% with a really cool set of framelits. I don't have them handy right now, but it's got a little kind of a landscape of houses. It's beautiful. So Merry and Bright, we're going to use basic black archival ink onto Whisper White. All right. We're going to cut these out with the Layering Ovals framelits. And these are the fabulous set of oval framelits, and I use the second smallest smooth oval and the second smallest scalloped oval. And we'll go ahead and cut these guys out. Now we can do this in one fell swoop. Let me get my Merry and Bright lined up here. I've got the magnetic platform underneath, one of my favorite accessories for the Big Shot. That just keeps the framelit where I want it. And we'll go ahead and cut out both of those at the same time. And what I do is I do press down on the cutting plate just to keep that in place as it goes through the Big Shot. But be careful, don't run your thumb through the Big Shot. All right, there we go. And I'm just going to adhere those together using multi-purpose glue. Gives me some wiggle room to get that lined up just right. Love that little scalloped border around the sentiment. Go. Grab a couple dimensionals. I'm still on Operation Use Up My Dimensionals. I have all these edge pieces. I just take my paper snips and cut little sections of them to use those all up. So we'll just stick some dimensionals on there and we'll just plop that right on our little shadow box. And there we go, a fun lip balm shadow box. Now, if you wanted to make sure that that ribbon stayed put, just gonna pick up a glue dot and stick that right underneath the knot of the ribbon. That'll just kind of hold it in place right where you need it. And super cute. Wouldn't this be fun to get this in your stocking? Thank you all so much for joining me. Feel free to leave me any questions or comments. I read and appreciate every single one of them. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed week. I'll see you next Wednesday at the same time for my next weekly Wednesday Facebook Live. Thanks so much for joining. Take care. Bye.